One of humanity's great traditions is for older people to complain about the work ethic of younger people. We've seen this pattern repeat with every generation in modern history, and we would probably see something similar if we could go back to a time before modern history. It seems likely that if you talk to a 45-year-old in the year 1200 BC, they would tell you that kids those days are a bunch of lazy, ungrateful whippersnappers. In fact, we don't have to speculate about this. We know that Aristotle, some 300 years before Christ, complained that young people of the day were high-minded and had not yet been humbled by life. Meanwhile, the Roman poet Horace in the 1st century BC chastised young people as beardless and accused them of squandering their money, which tells us that the epidemic of beardless men goes all the way back to ancient Rome, which is kind of a shocking and troubling discovery. The point is that there's nothing new under the sun, and complaints by old fogies like myself directed at the youth certainly are no exception to that rule. However, just because a complaint is common, that doesn't make it necessarily invalid. In fact, if anything, it would seem to suggest the opposite. And these days, when it comes to concerns over a lack of work ethic among the current crop of young adults, all signs indicate that the concerns are well-founded. I don't know if they were true in Rome or Greece 2,000 years ago, but I know that here in the year 2023, we do seem to have a problem, and it is a serious problem. Time reported in 2021 that young people are leaving their jobs in record numbers, and many of them are not getting new jobs at all. This trend doesn't seem to have slowed down. At the beginning of this year, CNBC reported that 70% of Gen Z and millennials are planning to leave their jobs. And of course, 70% is a large number. Plenty of them will get new jobs or try to. But the number of young adults who have no job and are not in school has been trending upwards. As of 2022, over half of Gen Z adults are living at home with their parents. The statistics are pretty familiar to most people. It goes on and on. We get the idea. But the issue isn't simply Gen Z refusing to get jobs. It's how they behave once they have the job. A survey of 1,300 employers and managers revealed a significant consensus among these employers that this current group of young adults tend to be extremely difficult in the workplace. The New York Post reports, quote, "Some American business owners and managers hold a dismal view of Gen Z workers, shocking new research has revealed. Resume Builder surveyed 1,344 people in managerial positions across different industries in the U.S. earlier this month, asking them about their experiences working with those born in 1997 or later. Almost half, 49% of respondents, declared it difficult to work with Gen Z all or most of the time, while a staggering 79% said they find them to be the most difficult generation to have in the workplace. Of that majority, 59% said that they have had to fire Gen Z employees, and 20% even claimed to have axed one of the young workers within a week of their start date. Managers and owners commonly cited entitlement and a lack of effort, motivation, and productivity as reasons why they were given the boot." Now, this brings to mind all of the Gen Z-led trends we've discussed on this show: quiet quitting and bare minimum Mondays and resenteeism, etc., all just trendier and slightly more subtle ways of describing laziness. And it's not always subtle, though. The quiet quitting trend has recently been supplanted by loud quitting, which is exactly what it sounds like. Here's a TikTok video promoting this fun new fad.
"Hey, I'm gonna need you to come back early from your break. It's crazy out there." "Oh, no. Sorry. I'm actually applying to jobs right now. I'm super busy. Trying to make sure I never have to come back here again."
"What? Why?"
"Oh, because I'm miserable. Mainly because of you. You're the worst."
"Excuse me?"
"If I had $1 for every time you make me question my sanity, I think I'd be retired and be able to escape this perpetual state of misery."
Okay, so that's what loud quitting looks like. It's when you quit loudly, apparently. Now, just to be clear, the good guy in that scenario is supposed to be the gratingly obnoxious and disrespectful employee. She's meant to be like the sympathetic character in this little skit, which perhaps tells you everything you need to know, I guess. And of course, the quiet quitters and loud quitters and bare minimum Mondayers have excuses for their lackadaisical approach. As Business Insider reported a few weeks ago, Gen Z employees say that their perceived laziness can be explained by the fact that they feel unfulfilled at work, that they are burned out, that they are unhappy with their wages, that they're looking for a better work-life balance, or some combination of these excuses. But whether the excuses are valid or not, and we'll get to that in a moment, it seems that even many Gen Zers themselves will not deny their general lack of effort. It's just that they think they have a good reason for it. And that brings us to this extremely viral video that if you spend any time on social media, you've likely already seen it over the last day or two. In the video, we hear a young woman giving her perspective on her first 9-to-5 job. And she is, to put it mildly, not thrilled with it. Watch.
I know I'm probably just being so dramatic and annoying, but this is my first job, like my first 9-to-5 job after college, and I'm in person, and I'm commuting in the city, and it takes me forever to get there. There's no way I'm going to be able to afford living in the city right now, so that's off the table. Like, duh! If I was able to walk to work, and it'd be fine, but I'm not. So it literally takes me, like, I leave here, like, I get on the train at 7:30, and I don't get home till, like, 6:15 earliest, and then, like, I don't have time to do anything. I want to shower, eat my dinner, and go to sleep. I don't have time or energy to cook my dinner either. Like, I don't have energy to work out. Like, that's out the window. Like, I'm so upset. Oh my God. Nothing to do with my job at all, but just like the 9-to-5 schedule in general is crazy. Being in the office 9-to-5, like if it was remote, you get off at 5 and you're home and everything's fine. But like I'm not home. It takes me long to get home, and like people that drive to the office, like you don't get off at 5. And I know it could be worse. I know I could be working longer, but like I literally get off, it's pitch black, like I don't have energy. How do you have friends? Like how do you have time to like meet like a guy? I don't know. Like how do you have time for like dating? Like I don't have time for anything, and I'm like so stressed out. And
Now, as always with these viral videos, the story isn't really the video itself, but the general reaction to it. And from what I've seen, although there are some people telling her to stop whining and get to work, a large percentage of people, seemingly on the left and right, have taken her side and are scolding those who are criticizing her. They say that she's entirely justified in being so upset about the 9-to-5 grind, that the work hours, the lifestyle, the commute are indeed very difficult, if not completely soul-crushing. And according to this side of the discussion, those being unsympathetic to this young lady are needlessly cruel and heartless. Meanwhile, plenty of young people about her age have chimed in to echo her complaints, and they say they're done with the 9-to-5 routine. It's time to abolish it for good. Last month, the G20 announced a plan to impose digital currencies and digital IDs on their respective populations. Central bank digital currencies allow the government to track every purchase you make. They can even give officials the ability to prohibit you from purchasing certain items or freeze your account altogether. There's reason to be concerned about this, to put it mildly. If you haven't yet, you need to call Birch Gold today and talk to an expert about preserving your savings in a tax-sheltered retirement account. If you have an IRA or 401k from a previous employer, and all it's doing is just gathering dust, we'll call Birch Gold, and they'll help you convert it into an IRA in gold. You won't pay a penny out of pocket. They'll simply convert that 401k into physical gold, which, unlike digital currency, can't be tampered with. Text Walsh to 989898, and sorry, I said that wrong. Text Walsh to 989898, and Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. If digital currency becomes a reality, you'll be glad you have something physical to fall back on. Text Walsh to 989898 and claim your free info kit on gold today. Okay, well, here's what I say, and a few points about this. First of all, I personally would not want to work a 9-to-5 corporate job. Even if it was a 9 to noon corporate job and my commute was 10 minutes and I was paid $1 million, I would find it unbearable. Now, nothing against the people who work those kinds of jobs. If that's how you feed your family, more power to you. If you find a way to be fulfilled in it, even better. But for me personally, I think I'd rather be in a prison camp. So I understand anyone who sits in a cubicle all day and laments it. I would lament it too. But the thing is that the thing that's often missing from the Gen Z lamentations about the modern working world is any discussion about the alternatives. It's not just Gen Z. It's like anytime anyone is complaining about the modern working world, okay, what are the alternatives? And if someone is, especially for young people who are saying, this is so difficult, I don't want to do it, it's very important to quickly transition that complaint into all right, well, you don't like that. Here's what else you could do. Now, as I so often preach, we all, well, most of us, have to work. Life is work. Work comes in many forms, but no matter what, if you are like the vast majority of humans who have ever lived on Earth, then you will have to pick some form of work. Life requires work to sustain. There's no way around this outside of enslaving others and forcing them to do all the work for you. So if you're not going to be a slave owner, then you're left with working. And if you don't want to jump on the 9-to-5 racket, then there are some other options, and here they are. One, if you're a woman, you could become a stay-at-home mom. And it is certainly not a coincidence that so many of these TikTok videos of people complaining about hustle culture and the daily corporate grind feature women. Not all of them, but like most of the time, if we play a video like this on the show, you notice these are usually women. And that's because, the gender angle, it cannot be ignored here, although it often is. Women are not wired for this the way that men are. That's the reality, whether we want to admit it or not. What many women actually desire, even if they feel they aren't allowed to articulate that desire, what they actually desire is to be mothers and homemakers. The drive to leave the home and ruthlessly compete to earn a living, that is an inherently masculine drive. Lots of women simply don't have that in them. And that is not a bad thing. It's not like they're lacking something. They're just different. And so I wouldn't respond to a video like that by saying, no, go out and be a corporate girl boss. It's what you're meant to do. That's not my message. Men and women are different. Women are women. They're not men. So if this push against the 9-to-5 grind leads more women to embrace their calling as wives and mothers, that's a great thing. But there is a caveat here, okay? Being a stay-at-home mom is work. It's not a job. It's not a job, but it is work. In fact, it requires a lot more work than the average 9-to-5 job. That's partly because the work begins much earlier than 9, unless you are incredibly blessed and your kids sleep till 9. But probably the work begins much earlier than 9 and it goes much later than 5. As I said, life is work. Leaving the 9-to-5 behind does not mean leaving work behind. In many cases, it means more work, harder work, more exhausting work. Work with much more on the line, a lot more pressure. But the good news is that the work is more fulfilling and more important. But it is work all the same. 2, the second option. You can get a job outside of the 9-to-5 structure. The easiest version of this option would be a remote job. The only problem is that many companies are trending away from remote work. Also, if you choose to work from home and you do care about climbing the ladder in your industry, you'll likely be hindered by the lack of physical in-person interaction with your coworkers and bosses. I mean, when it comes down to it, like society tried this for a couple of years, and what we discovered is that many jobs really cannot be performed at a high level when you're sitting at your home in your pajamas. There are still some jobs like that. If you get one of those jobs, then good for you. But most people won't. So the next part of that option is you could leave the corporate world behind entirely, and you could become an entrepreneur, or you could pursue a career in a creative industry, an industry where the 9-to-5 is not relevant. And that's what I decided to do. I've never once regretted it in my life, but as I said, desks and cubicles and busy work have just never been my strong suit. If I had a corporate job, maybe I would be crying about it on TikTok too. But again, there is the caveat. That this path will almost always require far, far more work. The 9-to-5 setup is irrelevant in my line of work, but that's because I work a whole lot more than 8 hours a day. For me, it's more like 12 or 13 hours a day. In fact, in my business, you're basically always on the clock. I wouldn't trade it for a corporate job under any circumstance, which is probably a good thing because no corporation would touch me with a 10-foot pole at this point, but it is more work ultimately. So if your fundamental complaint is you don't want to do the work, you don't want to work, or you want more free time, then the second option really isn't good either. 3, finally, if you're done with capitalism and the modern working world entirely, as many Gen Zers claim to be, they say we're done with all of this. It's all a societal human construct, 9-to-5, we don't need it. Okay, well, there is a way around that too. And this is the third option. It's really your only real option if you're completely done with all of this. You can get away from it all. You can drop out of modern society to the extent that it's possible to do such a thing. You can move out to the wilderness somewhere, and you could try to live a self-sustaining life. Build your own home, grow your own food, hunt, fish, all of that. I mean, this is how nearly everybody lived before the invention of the 9-to-5. And the way to reject that modern system entirely is to go back to a pre-industrial lifestyle, which is still technically possible. There are people who do it, maybe like 5 people, but there are people who do it. But this, out of all the options, will be by far and away the hardest and require the most amount of work. That's because people prior to the industrial age worked essentially every minute of every day, sun up to sundown, with no breaks on weekends and no federal holidays. I would greatly admire anyone who attempted to live this way today, but if you're doing it because you want more free time, well, you're going to be in for a very unfortunate surprise. Now, if you don't want any of these options, you don't want to be a stay-at-home mom, you don't want to work in an industry outside of the 9-to-5 system, you don't want to be a pioneer out in the woods, well, then the corporate slog is all you have left. That or winning the lottery. But you're not going to win the lottery, so the corporate slog is it. As you've probably noticed, that slog may be a slog, but it's also the easiest and least arduous path and requires the least amount of work and gives you the most free time out of all the possibilities. You know, you notice in that video, she talks about, I go to work at 7:30, I get home at 6. 7:30 to 6, well, that leaves you, you could have 4 hours of free time, go to bed at 10 p.m., sleep for 8 hours, wake up in the morning, have an hour and a half before you have to leave for work. That is a lot of free. That's 20 hours of free time a week, not counting the weekends. That's a lot of free time, a ton of it. And if that's what you value most, well, that's like the 9-to-5 is, of all possible options, the easiest one. It's just that it won't make you as fulfilled, probably. If you want more fulfillment, you have to do more work. If you want less work, you'll get less fulfillment. This is the way life is set up. There is no way around it. There just isn't. Is it fair? I don't know, I guess not. Is it worth complaining about? Probably not. Can you change it by complaining? Definitely not. Either way, this is life. This is what it means to be a person. You have to work one way or another. So make your decision, choose your path, and get going. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.